Excitement because it's time for a tour of the all-new Mercedes C-Class as the electric C-Class. What about the combustion engine version? What about the EV? And how good is it also in comparison to the recently shown BMW i3, the all-new 3 Series generation by BMW? What kind of different strategies do they have, these different competitors? And all you need to know here in exterior, interior and the technology with Thomas and Autogefuehl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the front of the electric C-Class as they call it here. This is here the AMG Line Plus with the night package, means you have the dark chrome as the outline of this huge front grille. It is closed, but it signalizes, so to speak, a retro look. Then here illumination also of these individual dots, and then illumination also in the outline from the inside, and the star is also illuminated. In Europe, just this. In North America, for example, you also have the illuminated ring around. This has to do with regulations, not with the manufacturer. AMG Line. And AMG Line Plus here has this visual graphic then in the lower intake, in the outer part. Then digital light is an option. These are the matrix LED. And here, this is then also here with the star pattern in the light. So they play a lot with the star pattern. The blue ones, you can see that these ones are the digital lights. Then directly here, spectacular effect. When I just press slightly here on the Mercedes logo and then release here, this is then the frunk. Also an interesting mechanism here for the release, but it's easy to open definitely. Also not only for a charging cable, also very good premium floor mat, so to speak here. These are these splitter gaps basically for the US frunk, which looks like this. Then they always have this regulation that you don't get the idea to put people in the frunk. About that. So, but here in Europe at least we can have the free frunk. Free the frunks. So, there we go. Now it's closed again. Lavender is this color. So yeah, Leah would probably like that. Porsche calls it Provence in their model lineup. So yeah, I think very elegant definitely. Here now you can see the classic sedan shape. This is 13 centimeters or yeah, about 5 inches longer than the combustion engine C-Class. Most of that 10 centimeters goes into the longer wheelbase. However, I can already tell you that it will not have much more legroom than the C-Class, just like a little bit more than a centimeter. Why? They kept the rather long hood for an EV. You can see it right here for design purposes, for aerodynamic purposes, and also to have this large frunk. Because there's also the Mercedes CLA, which is on a different platform. That one has the shorter front hood definitely, and it's in a different segment. And here they want this rather elegant C-Class look still. This one sits on the same platform like the Mercedes GLC EQ. And interestingly, here they do not use the EQ naming anymore. They want to go back to the traditional naming and just say, this is the electric C-Class or C-Class electric, how you want to turn that. Then here, these wheels, 18 to 20 inch. So these here, 20 inch, are indeed the biggest ones that are available. Then more black accentuations because this is then here, lower part, upper part, mirror caps. The night package is in this case included because you have the AMG Line Plus. And then you can vary how you want to have the looks and yeah, stretched roofline. But it has, you know, like the classic C-Class would more have like this stronger step here. Here you can see it's stretched right there for aerodynamics once again, because this will also be quite aerodynamic. The official CD value is not out yet at the day of the filming, but it looks very aerodynamic, and also here a little bit coupe alike, so to speak. Reminds us a little bit of EQS and EQE rear, something like that, and it gets the same GLC EQ black panel. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of this black panel design. The lights on the inside with the tiny stars, once again, the same signature. I think it would have been maybe a more timeless design just to use more of that beautiful vehicle color. Or what do you think about that? And that we can already show you right now. Soon more of the, you know, all the measurements and so on. But you can see this is a separate sedan trunk. Let's see if we also get a T model estate maybe at some point. But BMW also went for the classic sedan shape. Can basically confirm the touring with BMW. Lower part high gloss black. Once again here AMG Line Plus with the night package. And with the AMG Line Plus you also get here this additional top black spoiler, which you do not have in this case with the base models. You only have that with the AMG Line Plus. Probably also not the best for aerodynamics, honestly. The charging flap is here on the passenger side, and there are similar values here, electric charging flap, as with the GLC electric, 11 kilowatt AC or 22 optional, and then here DC charging, 330 kilowatt peak. This is at least the official one, but the GLC also could score some 350, 355, at least for a short time, and then it dropped, of course. So that means 10 to 80% state of charge in 22 minutes in an optimum case for the 94.5 kilowatt hour net battery. And if we now think about, okay, this is the same battery for the GLC EQ, the MB.EA platform, so GLC EQ and C-Class electric share the same platform. The larger models will be different platform. Smaller platform, MMA, with the CLA, which is there available as electric and combustion. This one is a pure electric platform. There will no be combustion engine C-Class on the very same platform. At this moment, the combustion engine C-Class will run parallel to this one then here. And let's see if they maybe do like some kind of facelift. It's a little bit different strategy because BMW will do a pretty much refreshed new combustion engine 3 Series, which will look exactly the same like the electric i3, but still be on different platforms. So yeah, very interesting what the recent developments there will be. Here, as for the battery for the electric C-Class, it is smaller in comparison to the BMW i3, which uses 108.7 kilowatt hours. However, this one does have an advantage in acceleration because this one is at 4 seconds. The C400 electric, 4 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, one electric motor in the front, one electric motor in the rear, and this one has a 2-speed transmission. And usually you would already shift to the next gear for efficiency reasons at about 70 kilometers an hour. However, if you do 0 to 100, poof, they can play with the first gear and make in first gear 0 to 100. So BMW uses 1 gear. That's why they are not as fast. So we expect 4.7 seconds, something like that for the i3. It's 4.9 for the iX3 for the SUV, whereas it is then also quicker at 4.3 seconds for the GLC EQ. So yeah, very interesting. So smaller battery for Mercedes, but quicker in the acceleration. And yeah, we'll see about the range and efficiency. What can we somehow calculate for the range here? Realistic, you can do at least 500 kilometers, 300 miles, also with a good speed on the motorway for sure. And the official figure is of course way higher. Yeah, but it's always makes more sense to look at the realistic figures. And important also technology-wise, first of all, the DC-DC converter for 400 volt charging, depending on the market, either standard or optional. And this one, in contrast to the BMW i3, gets air suspension as an option and is a package with air suspension plus rear axis steering, steers 4.5 degrees in the opposite direction than the front wheel. So this is an exclusive option to make the ride, of course, even softer then. So yeah, you see different emphasis from this competitor BMW i3 to the electric C-Class. This will be very interesting, especially in the driving comparison very soon. As for the interior, we have the key fob right here. Small, known, and then when you open it, or with keyless go, here, these flush door handles open. The base door handles would be still classic ones, but then you don't have keyless go. You always have to press open on the key. If you want to have it keyless, basically, then you have to use these. They are still mechanical when they're opened like this. But still, for the Chinese market, they would probably have to go for the standard door handles then, and maybe soon for other markets. We have to see. Then inside of the doors, everything is covered right here in a nice leatherette. It's also with a nice structure here. 4 window levers. We know from the CLA, there we have 2. Here we have 4. There is hardback here in the inside of the door, but at least a rubber ground. Optional boom is the sound system. And what I can also show to you is, work right now here. Laminated glass for the front. I asked for that explicitly, and they say that this is actually standard here, that it's laminated in the front. It is Is it locked in the rear? Let's see. Turn on the ignition. So by the way, here at the right steering column, there you can actually turn on the ignition. Let's take a look at the rear window then. There we go, because that should not have the illumination. No, this is, I mean, it's pretty thick, yo. No, thick in sense of width. But for the front, it's already good, and that is also standard. And let's take a look here at the ambient lighting already. I put it more to the purple color now. It fits the exterior. It's also nicely done. And seat control here has some feedback again in comparison to maybe like models before, so that it moves again a little bit. Then here we have, first of all, the steering wheel, perforation at the side, AMG line style, 2 spokes, and real buttons at the steering wheel. Can just applaud them for that. They listen to our and to the customer feedback. Right side for the volume, for example. And this steering wheel, by the way, is animal-free material. You cannot see the difference, you cannot feel the difference. It's really soft, very good quality. Can also applaud them for that. You can pick that in the configurator, and probably they will also soon make it standard. And you have nothing to lose there, only to gain. Here also the seats. These are the sport seats. Microfiber inside, leather red outside. Very good quality. Also very good microfiber quality. So, and looks stunning, with the integrated head restraint right here. You can also adjust it. I'll show it to you when I sit in the car very soon. There is also a comfort seat available, which doesn't have these accentuations at the shoulders. However, the seating depth, basically, the so-called German Einsitzhöhe, should be the same for the sport seat and the comfort seat. I asked them for that. And yeah, we have decent seating comfort. Sit the big situation here. Steering wheel up and down, in and out, and good grip of the steering wheel, good size, and once again, nice, very, very soft material. And I like the perforation here also at the side. Shifting pedals here, not for shifting, but for the recuperation. And then here you just put in the gear like this, for example, and park and ignition on the right side, ignition, so to speak. Yeah, and then here, there's no controls here because it's at the inside of the doors. We can make this one here a little bit longer and find a nice seating position. And I'll talk more about the headroom then soon from the other side. Now the cockpit here of the all-new C-Class, the electric C-Class. There you can see more of this ambient lighting. And yeah, let's also change it maybe around a little bit. There are also like these pre-schemes, so to speak, but you can also set monochrome individual colors. So yeah, just depending on how you like it best actually. And this is the hyper screen. So this is a screen that goes basically all the way through here. However, this is not the standard. The standard would be that you start with 3 individual screens. The third screen is just for background picture. Optional, the third screen on the side is also functional as a passenger screen like here. And then optional. Optional, you get the 39-inch going through screen here. So this is on the one hand similar to the GLC EQ, but the seating position is different. So like from the angle, we also have the difference i3 to iX3. So you sit lower here, of course. In the SUV, it would be almost like you would put up the seats, because the seats are the same like in the GLC EQ, but it's like I would sit almost like this in a GLC EQ, and now it's more this low seating sedan position, but it's maybe a little bit less comfortable for tall people, but it has a sportier seating position. You sit lower to the ground, feel a little bit more connected to the vehicle and so on. That's also something, just depends on what you prefer. Headroom here with 1A9, 6'2" to this fixed glass roof. Let's see, that's cool. I can even make that a little bit longer here, the sunblind. That's a cool feature, and not everyone has that still. So kudos to that, definitely. Then we have these pretty fancy air vents here, also with nice clicking sounds, and out, up and down. On the side, it's more, again, this turbine style, also with nice clicking sounds. Different decor elements are available. You can get this carbon sporty style. They can also get wood. Then here the glove box is tiny, but it falls down in a very smooth way, definitely. 2 inductive charging pads. They are also ventilated. This looks also pretty fancy, definitely more high class than the charging pads they had before. And some real hotkeys, for example, to turn off the screen for cleaning mode, automatic parking and the dynamic select, you can pick the individual driving modes, for example. Switch on the vehicle for that. So this will be possible from here. Cup holders are somewhat adaptive, but only on one side, so heavier, taller bottles won't be kept that tight by that. Then the typical Mercedes split armrest, some space underneath, but there is no charging there. But we have the charging here underneath. So we have... Is there a second one? I can't really see it. Yes, yes, yes. So 2 USB-C chargers there, but in the CLA we have like this interesting. So I do feel this hole here from underneath. Well, wait a minute. No, but there's nothing where I could catch that actually. So in the CLA, you know, you can put a cable through, but it feels like from underneath, but it's not the same from up above. Yeah, that's very interesting. Peculiar, definitely. So overall, the build quality is here actually very decent. Technology focus with all the screens and so on. Head-up display is also an option. You see the box here, and also here the dashboard, for example, is properly covered. And once again, they finally made its way also into high-class animal-free materials, and also show that you do not lose any quality or durability or something like that, that they really made things right there. And you can easily pick that in the configurator. Then the driver POV, here with these shifting pedals, which are for the recuperation settings. Then the digital instruments. Here you can see where you have the great transition between the instruments and the screen. This was because here, when you have the map, for example, the satellite view, then you have more, or this assistance in view, then you see this, you know, there's the fine transition when you have the normal speed and so on. When you have the other modes, then you have more like the not this fade out effect. So this was important to say. And here, I mean, 600 kilometers, 370 miles is something you can maybe realistically achieve. If you go 500 kilometers, 300 miles, that also works then on higher autobahn speeds, for example. And then, something of the head-up display you can also see in the distant. Then here the main infotainment unit. So this is actually decently quick, very good in the resolution, also crisp, and with auto Apple CarPlay is also available. Burmester sound system is really very good. And either for acoustic music, or if you go for here this intense scheme, this is good for electronic music, for example. However, what I don't like so much, like with many other manufacturers, I have to control the, I also have again this effect here when I go through the temperature changes. So this is all in the screen. And important to say here, this is here, you can also control seat heating and steering heating on the first level, because here this is actually good that you only have the first level, and then you see here the heated steering wheel also is activated and stays. I put it off, it also gets off. So at least you don't have to go in the second level. Now to the rear seats here with a nice cover on the top. Nice leather red with a good structure here as well. Burmester sound system, hardback only in the lower part. And then the rear seating experience. Isofix on the outside seats each. Then we also have the thick microfiber here, good quality. In the middle part we can pull on this armrest. Then phone holder or adaptive cup holders like this. In the middle part, 2 USB-C chargers. And now the big question is also in comparison to the SUV. I mean, it still works here when I'm driving as a tall person. You don't have as much legroom as in the GLC EQ. And you can see the problem of an electric sedan is always you have to put the battery somewhere. At the same time, you have to keep it low. Riding low, right? And then, you know, my feet are relatively high. The combustion engine more have like the foot garages then. And this is not the most comfortable thing. I think it's okay. It also gets a little bit close just with the left side of your body. I think you can also see it here. Like this bolster is relatively wide. I mean, at least you can't fall out of the seats then, you know, when someone would be driving sportier here. And I mean, 4 seconds in the acceleration for the normal all-wheel drive version for the C400 is quite quick. Then, yeah, you might want to be kept tight there. So the rear seating is, let's say, not the focus. Headroom still works to the glass roof. It works, but if you want more comfort here in the rear, then it would still be the SUV choice. Nice ambient light integration. And this glass roof, you never get a fixed roof. With the i3 it's different. With BMW you have a fixed roof or a fixed glass roof, so either closed or glass roof. Here always glass roof. And then you have two options. First one, you can also get this, there we go, this effect that it, gets this milky atmosphere, reduces sun glare a little bit. The heat filter in the glass is always there, no matter if you pick this option here or not. This is just for design purposes, or maybe that you have a little bit less glare, but it does not change the heat intake. This is already in standard for the glass roof. A fixed roof would still isolate more from the heat. I can also put it clear again, but you can also see these stars, or maybe when I put the like the shade again, because this is the second option, that you have these tiny stars illuminated in the color of the ambient lighting. This is the second option then for this glass roof. Which one would you actually go for? Or would you still wish a fixed roof without glass here for the electric C-Class? Tell me in the comments. Now to the trunk or the boot, 470 liters. Let's flip the Mercedes logo and open it. Here, this one also still fits vertically, the cabin trolley. Then the width is a little bit limited here between the wheel arches. So here we are only at about 37 inches or 94 centimeters. Here is wider in this area. Then the length, we are at 1 meters and 7 or 42 inches. That is quite substantial already. And then here from the height, 19 inches and 48 centimeters. Underneath there is still some storage. Look at that. I mean, you could also put the cable in the front, or something else. Maybe this is also quite substantial. And then it's also quite cool, where Mercedes usually pays a lot of attention to. Here, this remote unlock feature. There we go. Yeah, sometimes we have to push a little bit. You can see I did that with the stick here. So, and then the total length is 1 meters 85 or 73 inches. You have this, maybe this plastic thing is not so nice, but you have, let's say, like a solid transition here, like a small step, something like that. Yeah, overall well usable for a sedan, I would say. Can't say anything about that, can you? Definitely very exciting what we have seen here today. What about the pricing? So this one with the big battery, all-wheel drive, as it stands here right now, should be available below 70,000 euros as the entry price. And if you spec it nicely, maybe 80,000 euros, as it stands here right now with all the bells and whistles and so on. And there's some plant parts here already falling down from the wind. So with all the bells and whistles, you can also spec it probably towards 90,000 euros. So it won't be cheap at all, and it will be more expensive than the Mercedes CLA. This one here, about 10 kilowatt hours more in the battery. So the CLA will be more or less better price performance in this respect. However, with the C-Class, you get the more traditional design, more class in the design, so to speak. More traditional class in that way, but I mean, that's totally matter of preference, what you prefer right there. And it will be extremely interesting how this one then will relate to the BMW i3. So now it's also time for an opinion piece, and also, more comparison again, BMW i3, electric C-Class, and that's why that I appear a little bit more serious. I took on my jacket for that. No, because it's chilly, So the wind is coming, into this platform here, which I mean, beautiful outside of Faro in Portugal. Really like a beautiful background here with the sea and so on. That's always lovely to have that as a background as well. So honestly, as for design, because that's always, design is always opinion. And I love this front, because the grille, when it gets a little bit darker, you can see even more of this illumination right there. I mean, I would also take it with the chrome frame around, not the dark chrome. There's also the bright chrome available if you don't go for the night package. I think it really fits because it has the retro style from very, very back in the days, Mercedes, but then with a modern interpretation, and they went away from this typical Mercedes EQ design, and now they also went away from the naming there totally. So I think it works very well in the front, and also the front hood. Yes, it's good for the front, but it's of course not good for the rear legroom. But design-wise, it just looks better when the front hood is a little bit longer. And maybe I even like it better from design in front than the i3. I think so, at least from the front. However, in the rear, I think it's a little bit different because, well, first of all, I think a sedan looks better when they have the classic step, but then I understand that it's needed for the aerodynamics to make it a little bit more stretched. But I'm not the biggest fan really of the black panels, so I would honestly say I like the C-Class electric more in the front, but I like the BMW i3 more in the rear. That's as for the design. Interior is really, I mean, I like both. The C-Class electric is more on like, hey, let's make like the screen area super large. The i3 is, yeah, we don't put screens everywhere, but we have this panoramic vision that like the big instrument goes all the way around in the very front. And they also try to be a little bit more progressive as for the individual design elements there. I like both interiors. Yeah, and I would say the seats in the BMW i3 are a little bit better as for the comfort from the like seating depth, and the seats are also a little bit wider in itself. The Mercedes seats are, especially the sport seats, maybe a little bit firmer, but then again, when you compare i3 sport seats, they are also a little bit firmer, you know, so you really have to be mindful then to compare the comfort seat versus the comfort seat and the sport seat versus the sport seat, you know, so, and then it also gets a little bit closer, but still the BMW seats are a little bit wider and maybe a little bit softer, so to speak. Yeah, these are like the small first nuances, and this one in here, quicker in the acceleration, 4 seconds versus probably some 4.7 seconds due to this 2-speed gear concept. But then again, if long range is the thing for you, when we now calculate 108.7 minus 94.5 kilowatt hours, so yeah, this is a gap of, are you better in, Jonas, are you better in calculating? Is that about like, no, Jonas says, no, I'm not. So about 14 kilowatt hours, right? That should be, yeah, something 14 kilowatt hours. And that is oh, Jonas nodded with the camera. This is a significant gap. So we have to see about the efficiency, but if like really long range driving is the thing for you, then the i3 will probably have some advantage. But I'm really looking forward to drive both, do efficiency test with both, and then come to a final conclusion, also how it behaves in driving. And this one also has the special thing that it has air suspension and rear axle steering, which BMW is not offering. Then again, the base BMW suspension is also really extremely good, and they have this smooth stop concept, the software that can really make the car stop without you feel that the car is actually stopping. And BMW is more sophisticated with the assistance systems, for example. So you see, they have both like different nuances, but what is clear is that in the last years, the German manufacturers maybe missed some stuff, but now they're definitely back, and also here in the mid-size sedan segment that counts both for BMW and here for Mercedes.